So, Doctor Who spin-offs, over time, they've gone up and down in terms of quality. Now, the only one that I'll admit I haven't actually seen, and I don't actually know if I'm going to be able to see it, is Wartime from 1988, which focused around John Levine's character of Captain John Benson, which I have looked it up, and it apparently does exist, but in terms of modern viewing standards, it's not really possible to really watch it. You can't get it on DVD, and I'm not sure I could ever find it online. But anyway, the spin-offs for Doctor Who, they have gone up and down in terms of quality, but there's always something about them you could like. Torchwood, for example, first started in 2007, ran for 4 series from 2007 until 2011, and was aimed at a slightly older age bracket, i.e. adults and kind of older teenagers, and tackled mostly adult themes. Sarah Jane Adventures, which ran from 2007 to 2011 for 4.5 series, was aimed more at kids and teenagers, but at the same time, it had something that everybody could enjoy. And then Class in 2016, which I have actually spoken about before, I liked it, but I can understand why it wasn't picked up. However, none of these were actually the first attempt at a Doctor Who spin-off. That honour goes to K9 and Company. Now, K9 and Company was an attempted spin-off that only lasted for 1 episode, first broadcast on the 28th of December 1981. It saw the return of Sarah Jane Smith, played by Elizabeth Sladen, and K9, voiced by John Leeson, both of which had been popular characters in Doctor Who in the 1970s, but had never actually appeared together, as K9 first appeared after Elizabeth Sladen had left the series, originally travelling with Leela, played by Louise Jameson, and both versions of Romana, played by Mary Tam and Lala Ward. This was an attempt to bring 2 popular characters together and put them together in one show. And I've heard about this show for years, I've heard how kind of infamous it was, but after watching through it, I actually don't think it's that bad. I mean, I can understand why it wasn't picked up. I mean, especially since with the leaflet on the inside of the DVD, it says that the head showrunner at the time, John Nathan Turner, he really wasn't a fan of K9, especially since K9 had been introduced during Graham Williams' era overseeing the show. But at the same time, I can understand why this has somewhat become a kind of fan favourite. The story shows Sarah Jane Smith, played by Elizabeth Sladen, coming to the small village of Morton Harwood in order to spend Christmas with her Aunt Lavinia Smith, played by Mary Wimbush. However, when she gets to Morton Harwood, she discovers that her aunt has been called away to America to lecture, and so isn't going to be home for the holidays, which she's a little bummed out by. However, she's not going to be alone inside the house, because she finds out she also has to share the place with Aunt Lavinia's ward, Brendan Richards, played by Ian Sears. And similar to Sarah Jane's more successful spin-off from 2007, I do think you can see the kind of starting seeds here with the relationship with Brendan. Like, at the start of it, when he calls her up to say, look, do you think you could come and get me? I'm at the station. She's like, oh, do I have to? Well, yeah, you kind of do. I'll freeze out here. All right. He tells her that he's at the kind of local school and he's studying computers and additional maths. And she tells him, look, I'm thrilled for you, but if you're looking for a surrogate mum, I ain't it. But throughout the story, you can see her start to let down her walls a bit, and to the point that she does start to legitimately care for him. Which I can see those as the kind of starting seeds that would eventually grow into Luke, her adoptive son in the more popular spin-off. But anyway, while at the place, Lavinia also tells Sarah Jane that she's brought over a box that was left for Sarah Jane at the house in Croydon, to which Sarah Jane and Brendan look in the box and eventually find Mark III of K9, a present left to her by the Doctor, which Sarah Jane is happy that the Doctor hasn't forgotten her, but they can't rest on their laurels, as they soon find out that not everything is as it seems about Morton Harwood, as it's also a base of operations for a sinister cult known as the Hecate cult. And kind of once every few years they have to make a kind of sacrifice, and eventually Brendan ends up being kidnapped, and Sarah Jane has to go kind of looking for him in order to try and stop the Hecate cults and ultimately just enjoy Christmas with the help of K9. To which it turns out that almost everyone in the village is a part of the Hecate cult, including the kind of groundskeeper Bill Pollock, played by Bill Fraser, to a gardener named George Tracy, played by Colin Jevons, his son Peter Tracy, played by Sean Chapman, the local postmistress Lily Gregson, played by Gillian Martell, and the editor of the local newspaper Henry Tobias, played by John Quarmby. To which almost everyone's involved. But they also try and throw a curveball at us that I legitimately didn't see coming with it. Well, I sort of saw coming, but anyway, I'll explain. Is that one friend that Sarah Jane ends up making in the story is the kind of local pub landlord and landlady Juno Baker and her husband Howard, played by Linda Polan and Neville Barber. And throughout this particular episode, they go pretty heavy in trying to convince you that these two are actually part of the cult. Like, even when Sarah Jane plans to go out looking for Brendan, you get Juno call her up and say, look, if you're gonna be worried tonight, why don't you come over to us and have dinner with us? Seeming to try and divert Sarah Jane away from the issue, but it turns out, no, they're not. They're just kind people, and it is nice to see. There are elements of the story that I do wish kind of were happening, but you know what, I'm okay with it. For example, Sarah Jane, of course, in the Sarah Jane Adventures, would get her now iconic car of a Nissan Figaro. I do kind of wish we could have gone a Nissan Figaro in this story, but I don't know exactly what the lifespan is for that type of car, so her Austin Metro Cabriolet, it does the job. I do wish we could have gotten the first seeds of the Nissan Figaro, but then again, I have to say my only real problem with this particular story, I mean, everyone does well. The only problem I have is that I felt the climax went a little too quickly. Like, the episode was 50 minutes long with the credits, to which the opening credits are very clearly 80s. Like, I compare it to something like, well, with Elizabeth Sladen's shots and that, I compare it to something like Charlie's Angels, like her doing these things like sitting at a desk, sipping wine, and then jumping into a car and driving off. It's very clearly 80s. But as I said, my only real issue is that I felt with the ending, the entire episode is 50 minutes long with the credits, and it got up to about 44 minutes, and they were just getting to the chapel to face off against the cult, and I feel like the cult was just defeated a little bit too easily. I mean, I feel I could have drawn it out a little bit more and just had a bit more, but anyway, that's just my opinion. Overall, I can see why this particular spin-off wasn't picked up, but it would lead to great things later down the line. And you know what? If you haven't seen it yet, give K9 and Company at least a once check through. I mean, I might stick it on again for my festive marathon this year. I might include it as part of my Doctor Who festive marathon. But there you go. Let me know what you think of K9 and Company. Do you like this story? Do you not like this story? What did you like? What did you not like? Let me know down below. Anyway, until next time, see ya.